To go live. Okay, so we are live. We'll wait a second or two and let people pop on. So, welcome back, everybody. We are doing another live feed. We're going to be doing these about every day at 4:30. As I have a fly that's joining me on this live feed. And what we are doing, our goal is during this quarantine time is to spread joy, spread life, and give life back to people. And I'm blessed to have amazing people in my life, like Coach Bonnie. She is an amazing person, and she is one of our coaches for WorkSpeak. And Coach Bonnie, if you just want to tell about yourself real quick.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. So I'm Coach Bonnie. I live in Providence, Rhode Island. I have two little boys that I'm currently quarantined with, along with my husband and my mother-in-law. But the boys are small, 7 months and 2. So we're trying to have a lot of fun while we have this extra family time together. But that's the real basics of me.
Yes. And then you also, your background in education, and you have a very diverse background, which I love because it's industrial psychology. Then you have psychology. You can tell them.
Yes. I've kind of bounced around trying to figure out my little niche and what exactly I would like to do. But yes, I have postmaster's certificate in industrial organizational psychology, which is really just kind of how organizations work and how they could work better, I guess I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
But my real focus is more on the clinical psych part, which I have my master's degree in clinical psychology, and more recently, the health coaching piece of health. So mental and physical health and how those two things combine to really create your whole person and your whole experience, along with the spiritual side as well. I strongly believe that you need all three of those components to be in optimal health. So mental health does not go without the physical health and vice versa. And I'm really big on helping others reach a place of finding what their sweet spot is, I guess I'll say, and what works for them. So there's just so much information out there in terms of health and wellness, and it doesn't apply to everyone. And I just honestly have come across so many people that they become overwhelmed and they shut down, which I think is typical human psychology. So to have someone to kind of help you walk through it and trial and error some things and educate, and someone that you can hold you accountable is just so important. So yes, that's bringing all education together to this point now.
I think that starts actually get the overwhelm. So just in general, many people seem to be in the state of overwhelm. And I know that you're very gifted at helping people go from what is realistic goal and what's realistic for them in that time period too. So in this state of overwhelm, what are some realistic advice and things that we can give? As I said, we're all about breathing life and speaking life back into people, and they can borrow our energy while they're in states of frustration or overwhelm. So what are some things that the advice that you can give to them?
That's a big question.
That is a big question.
I think it also applies. So as we were saying, it's going to be a little different for everybody, but some of the real basic stuff that for some may not seem so basic is try as much you can to limit your exposure to media and what is currently happening worldwide. I mean, it's pretty incredible what we're experiencing right now. And I strongly believe we're going to look back and be somewhat proud of ourselves for getting through this. But in the meantime, look at how people are coming together and the advances that are being made medically and scientifically on what we're experiencing for really the first time. Try to focus on the positive, because there's a lot of good things going on. And it's just as easy to find them as it is to find the negative, but you need to look.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I think just filling your mind with not so stressful thoughts, put it that way, really lead to just a better mindset, and then to help you to do some of the other things, such as some of my other suggestions. Maybe maintain a schedule. I think that's a really big one for most people, especially if you're someone who, one, does not have the opportunity to work from home, so is currently not working at all, or you don't typically work from home and now all of a sudden you're finding yourself having to balance that at home. Stick to a schedule somehow, some way, whether it's similar to what you were doing previously or just something new that is going to make sense for you. I think that's a big one.
And I think the other thing in this is to give grace to each other.
Yes.
In this space, to give grace, to be able to have these deep conversations, but know that not everything's going to go perfect. It's all about what I say. It's not about, and we talk about this all the time, it's not about perfection. It's about progression. And in this space of time, how are you going to still, even though sometimes you feel like you may be at your lowest points, what are some things that you can do to improve upon? And it's not being perfect. It's about giving grace. And so what are some things that you can do?
Giving grace to yourself. I'll have to say that. I like going along with that idea, giving grace to yourself that it is a very stressful time and things are not going to be perfect. So if you feel a little more stressed out, that's a typical response. You're definitely not the only one. If you're feeling a little more anxious or depressed or worried, just accept it and work with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to pretend that nothing is different or scary right now.
So also with this too, I want to say if anybody has any questions for Coach Bonnie, you can always throw them over in the comments and we can pop them up there. And our main thing that we are talking about right now is about Bonnie has a background in psychology, but also is a health coach. And so bringing everything together, what are some needs that y'all have right now that we can help address? And so while we wait on comments or questions, Bonnie, let's continue on. We talked about before we hopped on that finding the good.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. What are some things that we can do to help find the good?
In just a general sense, it just makes me think that the only thing that we can control in this whole situation is how we respond, and our outlook and what we take from it. So finding the good, you can also create the good. I'm not quite sure which direction to move in that, like the little kind of practical things that you can do every day to find the good, or how to create the good in this type of situation.
Let's do both.
Yeah. Okay. So to find the good, it's like I said, it's just as easy to find the good news as it is to find the bad news. There are entire websites and Instagram accounts that dedicate themselves to sharing the good news and what's going on, what's happening. Even like neighborhood apps that I know, like myself, I use Nextdoor is what it's called. And a lot of people post things about different services that people are offering for free, what restaurants are doing in the local community, what you can do to continue supporting your local business. Because as we know, this is going to be something that hits the economy hard as well. And doing those sorts of things can really take you out of your own little mental anxiety shell and realize that helping others and kind of opening up your space a little bit is actually really helpful to your own mental health as well.
Yes.
And I hate to say it this way because I feel like it may come across the way I don't want it to, but it really is true. When you're in an anxious state of mind and really overcome with these worry thoughts, so much of it is self-centered, because you're worried about how it's going to impact you and how your life is going to change and how your health might change and all of these other things. And if you can use a little bit of that energy to put it out there and help another person and think, what can I do to help this situation? It is just incredible how it changes your mindset. It is. It's incredible.
And it allows you, from the physiology aspect, I talked about this with Dr. Dominique too, but it is what we talked about, being in fear instead mindset compared to faith. And so with that, if we're staying in that fear mindset, it literally shuts off our learning centers of our brains. We're not able to grow and be innovative and creative. And so the ability to give back, because it is that fight, flight, or freeze moment of self-survival that we can be in. And so this allows it to be more of a give back and a blessing, because if you bless others, I believe that you do get it. It's a saying that we've been teaching our kids, and that I've heard since I was young. It's better to give than receive. And right now is a true space to be able, if you're able to give, give. If you can't give, you can share. You can give time. There's some things that you might not be able to be with each other, but there's some things that we got to get creative. And that's what I love. I love creativity. And I feel like that's what the good that I'm seeing a lot come from it.
Absolutely. I agree. Yes. And even if you don't have so much to give, you may have a lot of demands on your time right now with work, and all of a sudden no longer having school and daycare if you have children that you care for. I mean, it's a lot to then think about giving back, but there are very small ways, as you said, Emily, to get creative. One small example, something that I've been trying to do, is I follow a website called the Good News Network.
Mm-hmm.
And they post 3 or 4 articles each day about something good that's happening in the world. And right now, a lot of it is surrounding the coronavirus, COVID-19 situation, because it's impacting everybody. And I share those articles to my own personal Facebook page. So hopefully that people who are just stuck on the social media and are having a hard time disconnecting from themselves from it will be scrolling and come across these good news stories as well.
Yes.
I actually have had a lot of positive responses, people responding and commenting and starting a positive conversation about it. And I just think it's so empowering. So just a long-winded story to say, just sharing something positive like that gave me a little lift.
Oh, I agree. And with that too, is seeing that whenever you can give positive, it's again, energy is not created or destroyed. And so whenever you give that positive back, in essence, you are giving it back to the world, putting some positivity in there. But the thing too is that I do this. I feel like everybody does it. I feel like, again, it's a part of the natural tendencies that we have. I always joke, I do surveys, I do mass surveys, and I'll do like 10,000 people. And I will find there's probably 10 or 15 people that have like negative comments, and I will just hone in on them. And that's the thing, though, is that we see the negativity and we're so drawn to it. And that's what I was talking about, or I was listening to the book, and you can probably might go into more of the psychology of it, but it was saying that people do not fear or do not worry about like the gain. They're more worried about a loss. So if they lose something comparative, if you tell them that they can win $1 million instead of losing $1 million, just the kind of the mindset, but it's, I'm explaining that horribly right now. But the aspect is that people actually have a natural tendency for a loss. And so they have a fear of loss. And I guess that is also what we talked about, is that change is the fear of loss or a gain of new perspective. So, and it's seeing if you could be the negative or the positive. So on that whole rant was about the psychology of how we stick to these negative thoughts, and like they so easily comparative to some of the positive ones that we have.
It's really incredible. And it's true. I want to say 99% of the people that I interact with, everyone is stuck on the negative. You're more likely to pay attention to it, share it, hone on it. Like you said, kind of become almost obsessive about it. And in psychology, they call it the activity bias. Sorry, I stumbled. It's called the activity bias. And the just biological part of our brain that focuses on the negative. And my understanding of it, and I think the way it makes sense for me anyway, is that from a survival standpoint, we're technically animals. Our brains are in mode. That's where, like you mentioned, the fight, flight, or freeze response. But our brains are actually wired and created to look for the negative to protect ourselves as a survival instinct. And that is something that can change. We don't need to live that way, because the life in the world that we live in now is completely different from when we were worrying about tigers and
bears and lions. Oh my!
Right, like all of those fears, so we don't have to live in that constant alert and fear of, having to watch out for the negative to protect ourselves from it. Now, a lot of it is just negative comments, like you mentioned, and negative feedback and negative experiences. And you can work to rewire your brain to not be so focused on that. It's possible. There's a lot of studies that have actually been done.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of a thought, an idea that just because it's biological and natural for us to do it doesn't mean that we have to get stuck there.
Exactly. And that's that growth mindset. And talking about mindsets, one thing that we talked prior to is that in this state that we can be negative or we can be positive, we get to choose, or you can actually just be, you can also, it's not like you are one or the other all the time, but in this space of between, talking about how as leaders or how as individuals, how we can rub off on the people around us at this time. And you were specifically talking about kids. And so if we are frustrated with the work, I was talking about earlier that I was extremely frustrated with my kids' school's system on how they're doing. They have digital learning days. And so the system was not very user-friendly, in my opinion. And so I couldn't get things uploaded. I just couldn't get a lot of things going. So I snapped a little bit and I was like, dang it, I'm not supposed to be doing that. So how can you help parents, as even the person like me that I miss positivity, but that technology was owning me because I couldn't get it done. So for some people that are in the space, one, they're new with technology. Two, then you add a new kid on it. And then three, you're also supposed to be doing your work. That's a lot at one time. So, and we're not, well, I guess we do teach and we coach. So it may be easier, come natural to us, but for other people that it's not just natural for them, how can we help them make sure that they stay calm and try to, I have Ashley right here that is a teacher and she said, you call me, I need to call her because Lord, I'm going to lose my salvation over these systems. I'm just kidding. But for those people, what are some things that they can do in the space to be able to breathe and not, or I guess to maintain rules that you should abide by of being nice and kind, even to your kids?
That's a tough one. It's a tough one. Sure. I'll focus here. I'm going to go back to the basics of kind of where I started before, where, try to have as much normalcy in your day as you can, especially if you have children. And you kind of demonstrated for us, Emily, breathe. You need to give yourself a little bit of space to physically breathe, about the physical and the mental and how those things come in together. Make sure that you're paying attention to your physical health in order to be able to manage everything that is being put on your plate right now. Sleep. Eat well, exercise if you can, get outside if you can, that's the one we're still able to do safely. So, yes, for sure. And just giving yourself the grace. You mentioned that you're not going to be perfect and it's okay if you snap. Just don't let it impact the whole day and the whole interaction that you're having with your child. It's really important for us to try to not let our anxiety and worry that we could be feeling rub off on the kids, because I think that makes it more difficult for everyone, because then you feel that and start reacting to it. Again, difficult, but if you're taking care of yourself, it becomes much easier.
I agree.
Letting it out with the proper outlets. If you have friends or family or whoever that you can kind of chat with, okay, get it off your chest and then try to move on and not hold it all inside. I think that's just a basic kind of coping skill that comes in handy, but especially at a high stress time like this.
And I think one thing to point on that is that from a physiology, we talk a lot about how sleep, food, mood, and movement are all mutually reinforcing of each other. So we usually do this in our goal setting ways, and that one, we say if you work on one goal, it will help each other. And so that's in essence kind of here too, that if you're not sleeping well, I stayed up to midnight last night, which is not the best. And I know that. And then I am actually on a perfect time to do a cleanse, right? So I'm doing no coffee or alcohol. And so for me, that is something that it's like, whew. So I know for me to own myself and in this space is a growth aspect of it. For me, that's the reason why I'm doing it. But I can even see it more about how they're mutually reinforcing of each other, and how when you rely on different things, whenever you rely on your caffeine, and it's not that it's bad, but it's just a thing that it's almost a coping mechanism that we can do. And my goal in this space is to be able to learn to control myself better, not having not having to have things to be able to be in the state of calm. And so how can people own themselves in this state so that they, and I guess talking about the sleep, food, mood, and movement and how they're mutually reinforcing, but what are some things that people can do to own themselves in this and not let this environment or this world own them currently? And again, if anybody has any questions, put them in there. Because Coach Bonnie would love to answer them for you. So.
I would, yes, please don't be shy. Oh gosh, there's so many things that you can do, and it's just I sometimes have a hard time answering questions like this, because to me it seems like, oh, here we go again. You're sleeping and you're drinking your water and you're eating well, and that's I try to work with clients in that way. And okay, what's your goal? What's going to work for you? What's going to have an impact on your life? So you don't have to do all of these things, but at a trying time like this, you need to figure out one or two things that are going to keep you sane and keep you feeling mentally well. So for some people who are already exercising and that's their stress relief and how they physically feel better and mentally feel better, make sure that you continue to do that as best as you can, even if it's for 10 or 15 minutes and you can squeeze it in during your lunch break or something like that. If you do find yourself with some extra time, maybe you're, like I mentioned earlier, not able to work from home, or you don't currently have children home with you, what is something that you've always wished that you had the time to do? Like, try to turn it around. Instead of a scary situation, this is an opportunity for you to practice cooking, read that book, take up a new craft if you want to learn knitting or something I wanted to do before I had children. Now it's going to have to wait a couple. Look at it as an opportunity that you have this time now to work on yourself and to dedicate some extra time and attention to yourself.
That makes me think of two things. There's one called Killing the Ants. And so what you said about turning it on the reverse. So killing the ants is to kill automatic negative thoughts. And so what you say, is it true? Then you say, is it really true? And so like with this situation, is it a bad situation? Like, yes. Then you ask, is that really, but is it the worst situation you've ever been in? And it may or may not. For me, I know it's not. I know that I've had hard times. And so this doesn't, for me, it doesn't even touch it, but it may be for somebody else. So you got to give grace and understanding that. But to put it on its reverse, what if this is the best time ever? What is a way that I can find good in it and feel that emotion and feel that in and kind of stick with it and try to stick with it? That's one thing. Another thing is we talk about health, sleep, food, and all that. But I always talk about the Nun study. And the Nun study showed that actually the biggest indicator of longevity really was gratitude. And so gratitude in this space, and I think it's that gratitude and grit, I think they go together. That's my theory. And that in this space, it allows you to be more resilient. So whenever you have hard times, you can find the good in it. You can find the gratitude, because one, we know that stress is cortisol in the body, and that causes inflammatory processes to go out. So
leads to a host of other things.
It does. And so cortisol and the body has so many jobs in there. It really does a lot, but it also can mess up a lot. And so if we can control our stress, and gratitude, having grace in those moments really do make a difference. So
I agree with that. To go off on your first point a little bit, for those of you who may be feeling right now like this is one of the worst things that you've been through, think about it on the other side. And once you are through this, how much self-development and growth you can gain from it, to realize, wow, I survived this. And to even come out stronger from it, which we always do when we go through tough times,
Mhm.
come out stronger. That is just one quick way that you can try to reframe it for yourself, and try to find the good. And that, okay, this is a really tough situation, but you're going to get through it. And when you do,
Mhm.
you're going to be a better person and more fulfilled person in a way, if that's the way you choose to look at it.
Mhm.
Because you're getting stronger by experiencing something you perceive to be difficult.
Awesome. Yes, I agree. So, with that, I just want to remind everybody that we are blessed to be able to do a give back. And so, right now, all of our services and our coaching services, so you can talk to somebody like Coach Bonnie for free. All of our services are free until the end of April. We are waiving all of our costs because guess what? We believe that people need this right now. So, if you are in a space that you just need to talk to somebody, we will help you, in essence, find that discovery of and have a goal or have a concentration and a plan during this time, that there's something that you can work on. And so in the midst of it, there will be good that comes from it. And so you guys can go to www.worksby.com/give back to you. And if you are in any of the industries that are really being impacted right now, let us know, reach out to us. We also do group and team talks, mental well-being, health, and just the psychology of right now and how to navigate it, especially as a team. And then finally, if you do want to reach out to Coach Bonnie on her own, you can go to www.worksby.com/Coach Bonnie. So I appreciate everybody. I'll wait just a second to see if anybody has any questions. We'll eventually get a questioning crowd. Y'all come every now and then. I still love you all. We're blessed to have you. So, a few more seconds. And final words from you, Bonnie.
We need to stick together through this. Social distancing does not need to be complete isolation.
Amen.
We are here for you at Worksby. Reach out, chat with us. More than happy, even just to have a little bit of the social interaction, if nothing else, and to help you focus in on the good and make this a positive experience for you. So please,
Awesome.
I look forward to hearing from you all.
Awesome. Well, y'all have an awesome and blessed day, and we look forward to talking with y'all soon.
Thank you.